सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। These three forms of contemplation are advised. Actually, there will be four, as we'll see, but first let us look at these a little more in detail. It is kind of difficult to discuss these contemplations, these forms of contemplation in abstraction. So we might do a few minutes of meditation through the course of this class. We'll see how it all goes. This is an age-old practice of meditation. This is centered, all these practices here described by Svatmavidyananda are centered on retaining that which is constant and setting aside, neglecting or putting away, suspending, disregarding that which is subject to change. This is a very simple philosophy behind the meditations. It is not anything complicated. So we have been looking in detail about Satchidananda and about the nature of Brahman, and we have been looking at that according to how this Brahman shines or obtains in the mind as a form of a conditioned, quote-unquote, Brahman, as a form of conditioned Brahman. What is conditioned Brahman means? Mixed up with the vrittis, the raga, dvesha, etc., and the corresponding vrittis therein in the mind. And if you want to use the other vada, which is what? The reflection vada, pratibimba vada, then the Satchidananda shines in the mind depending upon the clarity of the medium, which is again the mind, antahkarana. So then this is a very ingenious way to look at it, because we are not looking at objects per se to quote-unquote find out where is Brahman in each of the objects. It is like a child taking apart a toy to find out what makes it tick, what makes it work, and unable to put it back. That is not the idea. The idea is that we are looking at Brahman, because whatever you look at is Brahman, through the filtering mechanisms in one's own mind. And this is a very ingenious thing, because the ways of the mind, even though they are subtle and even though they are difficult to objectify, they can be witnessed. They can be understood through a witnessing called Sakshi Pratyaksha. Sakshi Pratyaksha means an internal witnessing. It's unlike objectifying the pot. The pot is right there and it can be objectified by the sense of touch and the eyes and perhaps even the nose, the sense of smell, because the smell of the pot is very earthen smell. So we can see that. So at least by three means of knowledge, direct means of knowledge available to us, the pot is objectified. But then it is very difficult, much more difficult to objectify the thought. And so why should I observe the thought? Because the objectification or the observation of the pot has got an interloper, is done through the thought. The pot is objectified through the thinking, and the thought, and if the thinking itself is vitiated by these vrittis, especially ghora and mudha, then it needs to be cleaned up. This is a very ingenious method to look at Vishayananda, to look at the happiness supposedly derived from the objects, and understand two things. First is, the objects are what they are. They can neither make you feel happy or nor make you feel sad. So this is a projection of the mind under the spell of ghora and mudha vrittis. And so this intermediary vrittis, the thought process affected by raga and dvesha, afflicted by samsara, etc. And of course, at the back of all of this, the master puppeteer is the self-ignorance. And so because of the ignorance and its broods and its projections, then the relationship to the object is vitiated by a subjectivity thanks to the ghora and mudha vrittis. There is a severe subjectivity attack in mudha vritti and also in ghora vritti, meaning one's own infrastructure comes in the way of relating to the objects, number one, and number two, one is unable to one has a subjective transference on the object and sees the object as a source of joy, and number three, one is unable to transcend the object and understand the object in the light of its cause, which is Brahman Ishvara. This is the block. So to unblock this, how to start unraveling this? So the first contemplation is getting to the place of seeing what? Seeing the existence of Brahman, Satchidananda, in everything. Now, for a not so subtle intellect, when the buddhi is dulled by mudha and ghora vrittis, when the buddhi is eclipsed, this is not something one is able to comprehend. Somebody in the throes of samsara and somebody who is very busy, doesn't have time to study, and in the spell of the ghora and mudha vrittis, should this person be written off as a student of Brahma Vidya? No, says Swami Vidyaranya, there is hope for this person too. How? We will focus on that which is existent, and that which is existent is Sat alone, not the object. So the object borrows its existence from Sadvastu, and that Sadvastu itself is Brahman. This is itself a wonderful meditation for a beginner in Vedanta, for someone who is just starting out, or someone who is still under the spell of ghora and mudha vrittis and they don't know where to start. This is a good starting point. So we'll see this when we do this, when we have a little demo. And then the next one is looking at not so much the objects, but looking at one's own mind. And in the mind, let's say, there are dispensable things. And what is the dispensable thing in the mind? Of course, the emotions. And we have read this and seen this for a long time. The emotions are dispensable. The emotions are here today, gone today, here today, gone tomorrow, here now, gone in the next moment. That is the nature of emotions. And you can see that in a small child. 1 minute it laughs, 1 minute it cries, 1 minute it is asleep, like this. And so this is the same thing even in an adult. And so one is not used to observing and working with the emotions. Even the Vedanta texts, especially the Shruti, etc., doesn't dwell a lot on the acquisition of Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. It dwells on it a little bit, but not a lot, because it is assumed that people will gain all the qualifications needed to study Vedanta, and then they will come equipped with those qualifications. But that is hardly the case, especially in Kali Yuga. That is hardly the case because because one comes unprepared, and then that preparation also has to be done side by side as one is acquiring knowledge. I told you about the three adhikaris yesterday. So that is, everybody is in somewhere in the middle, and so one is certainly not fully clarified into only having or mostly having sattvika vritti, and that is not the case. And so therefore the preparation also is done side by side, and here the advice is the following. And what is the advice? Is that in the second form of contemplation, forget the objects. See, it's already a little more subtle. You're not focusing on the object, you're focusing on objectifying the mind, which, as I said, is objectified through witness perception. If one is not a witness, then one is witless. That is what happens. One is witless and helpless in the face of all the tsunami of emotions that come. So the second form of contemplation is to look at one's own mind, which one really doesn't like to do. Why? Because it's a warehouse, a storehouse of sorrow, strife, etc. First thing you say is, oh, my whole life is gone. Oh. And so much so that even on a happy occasion like a birthday, it's very easy for people to feel sad. What have I accomplished? Nothing. The best years of my life are behind me. And now what? Only disease. And then what else? Vyadhi. And then what else is left? To look forward to death. Okay, the end. Nothing is there. See, this is how the mind just pulls one back. The mind and the ahankara are actually a pair of hopeless creatures, and they, it's like a bad marriage, and so they each keep doing something so that one is never able to pull oneself up. Just how the Bhagavad Gita says in the 6th chapter, Uddharet Atmana Atmanam Na Atmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Atmano Bandhuhu Atmaiva Ripuhu Atmanaha. So, in order to study Vedanta, one important form of preparation is to be able to be available emotionally for this study. Otherwise, one will start thinking that Vedanta is also going to make me more desperate, more sad. No use studying. If one is convinced, then the study of Vedanta or any kind of contemplation you might do is not going to help at all. Not going to help. So, the understanding the ways of the mind therefore become very, very important. Having a way over the sway of the mind, having having some management tools to manage the mind. And one of these tools that Svatmavidyananda discusses is called Sakshi Pratyaksha, observing the sorrow, and then immediately before the ahankara, who is very eager to get off from its pedestal of the observer and identify with the sorrow. This is why it is a bad marriage between the mind and the ahankara. So, we should tie the ahankara, glue the ahankara to the seat of the observer, not let it abandon the seat, and then keep watching the sorrow. Then what happens? the sorrow dries out naturally, because one knows some Vedanta, and then one is able to tell oneself, what is this sorrow? Do an inquiry into sorrow. It is a state of the mind. What do I want? I don't want a state. I want something that is always there. State is not what I want. I want something that is ever there. And what is that which is ever there? Brahman. And so, what is my nature? Satchidananda. So then where is the Ananda? Buried somewhere deep. Put it in storage. And I'm just using the sorrow for my everyday dealings. And so when you understand this, it is the Ananda that is upholding the sorrow. It is the Ananda, that is Satchidananda, that is upholding the sorrow. It is Satchidananda upholding both the existence of the mind and its machinations. Then this is the second kind of meditation, where it is a little more sophisticated, a little more, it's a little more difficult, because you have to objectify the mind that is hard to objectify. Then the third one, what is that? The third one here is finally looking at the mind, which now is tranquil. For the purposes of this contemplation, one gets in touch with a mind that is tranquil. One keeps doing whatever sadhana one needs to do, both antaranga sadhana and bahiranga sadhana. One does whatever one needs to do, and then get to the place of a certain calmness, which is shanta vritti. So when one is in a shanta vritti mind, that which preponderates, and then what happens is that one is able to see Sat in the form of the existence of all the vrittis. One is able to see the Chit, that all these vrittis are, what is the cause of them? They are they are sentient. I am sentient. And then why? Because I am aware of these vrittis. I am not the vrittis themselves. I am aware of the vrittis. And then finally what? This is Ananda. The mind is tranquil. I am having a good day, or I'm having a good meditation. When you say the latter, the meditation stops being good. In fact, the meditation stops. Aha, what a wonderful meditation. Okay, there the oneness between the subject, who is the meditator, and the object of the meditation, which is the truth of the meditator, which has temporarily come together, goes away. But nonetheless, it's a good meditation. When you think like that, even in hindsight, that is contemplating on Ananda. This is the threefold that kinds of contemplations that have been advised. This is what is called Brahma Chintanam. Chintanam here is not thinking about Brahman, because who is the one thinking about Brahman? Brahman. And so therefore, so this is Brahma Chintanam doesn't mean thinking about Brahman. Brahma Chintanam means contemplation of oneself as Brahman. And like we said, it is in different stages and states. And so we will just take a small little bit of time to understand this, how this is done. Okay, so we are already doing this in the meditation, but this will be a session to demonstrate some of the things that are being talked about. So sit wherever you are comfortably. Eyes softly closed. Hands on the lap are clasped gently. Taking the time to inhabit the body, to arrive, head, neck and back are in a single line, straight line. We will do a breathing practice that is very simple. Equal amount of time for the inhalation and exhalation. Simple, normal breathing, making sure that the inhalation and exhalation are of roughly the same length. Prana panau samau kritva nasabhyantara charinau. The next step in the meditation, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, is to keep external objects outside of oneself. This is a very intriguing injunction, advice, because that which is called external is already outside. To help and aid in this process, I visualize a range of mountains. This is how the mountains are. Mountains observed, I, visualizer of them or observer. In relation to these mountains, I find that I can be a neutral observer. What does this mean? In relation to the mountains, I can be objective. I don't want the mountains to be taller than they are or shorter. or facing a different direction. In other words, in relation to the mountains, I am non-demanding. In fact, I can be appreciative. Easy to have Shanta Vritti with regard to the mountains. Finally, I am content with letting the mountains be what they are. There is a neutrality. My emotions are not entangled because the mountains are external. Next, I visualize a river. Again, in relation to the river, I can be objective. I don't wish for the river to flow in a particular way or speed. In relation to the river, I can be an objective, non-demanding, appreciative, and contented person. Unlike the river or the mountain, there are certain other objects that are not just outside, external. They are also inside in the sense that they have been internalized due to ghora mudha vrittis. I visualize the mother. This is how she was in my perception. This is very important because my perception could be right, need not be right. It is important to acknowledge that this is a perception. So we have some semblance of objectivity. As soon as the visualization of the mother is done, one can clearly see that there is a difference between the mountain and the mother. Mountain outside, mother outside and inside. Lord Krishna's advice is to keep objects that are external outside and not give them the privilege of entering the mind and playing with the vrittis. How to do that? Retaining the love and the care for the mother, I grant her the freedom to be who she was, who she is in my perception. This is how mother was. This is how mother is. I take the time to grant the person the freedom. The extent to which I can do this is the extent to which I can be free from the expectations that she should have been different or she should be different. In other words, the extent to which I can neutralize the effect of the mother on my antahkarana is the extent to which I can be free. Free of expectations that may never get met. Om Namaha, Om Namaha, Om Namaha. Father. I visualize the Father. This is how he was. This is how he is. Again, there is a big difference in my response to the river and in my response to visualizing the Father. Retaining the caring, the love for the Father, I take the time to grant him the freedom to be however he was or is in my perception. The extent I am able to do this is the extent that I can reclaim my nature as an objective, non-demanding, contented, even appreciative person. Having gone through this exercise, we can say Mother, Father, river, mountain in the same breath. Mountain simply is. Mother is. Father is. River is. The isness of the parents and things in nature are the same. These figures that I call my parents enjoy the same isness as objects in the universe. Is, 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 is. Everything is. How is all the things, one by one, that is. How is this is connected to the I? What is the relationship between is and I? Right now we can say I is Sakshi, is Sakshya. One cannot observe the is for too long without it transforming, so to speak, into I, resolving into I. The truth of is Ishvara. River is, mountain is, flower is, meadow is, mother is, father is, significant other is. That is because the effect in the form of so many objects are not separate from the cause, Ishvara. That is why the Shruti says, Matradevo bhava, Pitradevo bhava, Acharya devo bhava, Atithi devo bhava. May you be the one for whom mother and father are Ishvara. A guest, a stranger, Ishvara. Acharya, teacher, Ishvara. This Ishvarification is very important to internalize these teachings. What is Ishvara. Om Namaha, Om Namaha, Om Namaha. Now I come to my own body. This is how body is. Body exists. Body is. There are many things about this body that I cannot change. height is, weight is, blood group is, color of skin is. This is how this body is in my perception. I externalize the body consciously, deliberately, by visualizing the body as though it is sitting in front of a full-length mirror. Body is. Body is an effect made up of 5 elements. Cause is Ishvara. Body is, whatever is Ishvara. That is why it is said, Deho Devalayaha. The body is a temple for Ishvara manifest within. Om Namaha, Om Namaha, Om Namaha. What about the mind? Mind, is it external to me? Yes, mind is. Thoughts are. Thought number 1 is. Thought number 2 is. Thought number 3 is. Thoughts come, thoughts go, without affecting the observer. Here, when we observe the mind, it is an internal observing. Mind is. Certainly, the mind shares the isness with other objects. But in the mind, we can discern. Mind shines with self-awareness. Now, happy. I observe. Now, sad. Now, angry. Now, despondent. Now, hard-working, trying to figure out something in earnest. Now, at repose. Now, restless. Now, contented. Now, in the spell of Ghora Vritti. Now, Mudha Vritti. Now, Shanta Vritti. All these changes are being cognized on the canvas of now. Now, despondent. Now, dejected. Now, bored. Now, disenchanted. Now, troubled. Now, turbid. Now, restless. Now, over eager, now elated, now desperate. What is this now? One can at first think that now is a slice of time. However, when we look into now, we see that it has neither a beginning nor an ending. What is the length of now? How long is now? Is now over now? Or is it over now? Now is timeless. Now is you, Satchidananda. Now doesn't have a length of time, neither the beginning nor the ending. In fact, all that is here is now. Past is recalled and lamented now. Future, the anxiety connected to the future, unfolds now. Ghora vritti now. Mudha vritti now. Shanta vritti now. When we say now, of course it includes the existence, isness, but also it includes awareness. Now I am, which means I know I am now. Om Namaha, Om Namaha, Om Namaha. This now, in order to inhabit this now, mantra japa is advised. You can simply use Om Namah Shivaya. The mantra takes the place of the broadcasting ghora and mudha vrittis. It is repeated, disciplines the mind. Chant now softly, mentally. Distractions will take place. Each time I bring the mind back. Allow the chant to drop. See the difference. Even the small chanting, small practice of chanting. See the difference this has made to the heart, to the mind. There is a union between the chanter and the chant. Chanter resolves in the chant. Chant resolves in the chanter. That resolution is Ananda, Ananta, endless, free, whole, gained by the cultivation of the Shanta Vritti, which means the understanding that one is a non-demanding, appreciative, contented. Contented is Ananda. This is my nature. This is contemplation of myself as Satchidanandam Brahma. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. When you are ready, you can open the eyes. And take a few seconds to return. And suddenly remember that you are in the middle of class. So what happened here? We will unpack some of the things, some of the practices to see how it relates to what Svatmavidyananda has been talking. So the observation of oneself, first the objects as Sat, that they share a common existence. Mountain is, river is, flower is, body is, mother is, father is. Although in regard to the mother and father, we had to do another step in order to make them is. We had to offload them, or them in the form of frozen expectations, needs, unmet desires, regrets. We have to offload the regrets. And since those regrets are attached to the parents, then it's like offloading the presence of the father and the mother in the form of subjective emotions. They are still there. They are in an objective form now, without disturbing the vrittis. And then so one can appreciate the entire Jagat along with one's source, that is one's parents, as simply is. That is the first form of meditation that he says. So what does he say? Upeksha, there is the, what does he say here? He says, Nrishingadim upeksheta and shishtam dhyayet. So when you take away, when you absolve the parents from your own expectations, then they are, so the expectations are disregarded, and then the primary caregivers, which were so entwined in one's mental and emotional processes, are now just free. One is rather free of the hold of these vrittis connected to the parents, connected to the significant other. The same thing we can do with a significant other, with a child, with the employer, employee, anybody. To gain this kind of an objectivity, to make them one more thing that exists in the world. This is objectivity. And then in that existence, we contemplate on that existence as a manifestation of Ishvara and disregard everything else. The emotional baggage, the frozen needs, the fears, the tears, whatever one's relationship is to those objects, events, people, circumstances, that is disregarded. Why? Because it comes and goes. What is, is. Is alone is, and is alone is understood, and it's no point in contemplating as everything is if we don't understand the meaning of is. So is understood as the presence of Ishvara. So this is the first form of meditation that he talks about. And then the second one is looking at one's own processes. And of course, having gone through the meditation, you understand that, these are not step number 1, 2, 3, they are not watertight. They bleed into one another and grow from one another. So the second kind is understanding one's own thought processes and seeing the despondency arise as a result of one's own thought processes, or the operation of the ghora and modha vrittis. What happens? In sadness washes over the mind, the predominance of the ghora and modha vrittis. And what to do here? Objectify the mind, witness the mind. This is what we did. And in witnessing the mind, we use the word now. Now desperate, now dejected, now despondent, now elated, now in the doldrums, now bored, now disenchanted, now angry. This is very important. And the one who is saying it has to say now, because right now I am observing that I am depressed. Right now I am observing that I am despondent. Right now, I am elated. Right now, I am tranquil. Right now, oh no, I am angry. Here, the anger, the upset, the despondency, the dejection, all keep going and doing their own things. In other words, the ghora and the mudha vritti are doing a ballet. Cha cha cha. Then, and then what? Where is it happening? On the canvas, on the ballroom of the mind. They are whirling and twirling. Sometimes it is a ballet, sometimes it is a polka. So different types of dances are going on. I, the observer, don't, go step in step with them and say, look, I know the steps to this cha-cha-cha. I know 1, 2, 3. I know how to do this. No. You just watch. And in watching, that the watcher is now. The watcher and the canvas of now are inseparable. The watcher resolves into Ananda. Very interesting. The watcher resolves into Satchidananda. Or if you want to just be strict about the second kind of contemplation, the watcher, you can say, is Satchit. I am, I is, and I is aware. Satchit, of the fact that there is a big ballroom dance going on of the various emotions. In fact, there is a competition. Will dejection win out, or will anger win out? Will Ghora Vritti be declared the winner, or will Mudha Vritti take away the prize? This is where the competition is. I don't follow this competition. I just watch. Is. And who am I? I am the one who is lighting the lamp of observation, bringing this to light. Meaning, I am not the vrittis. Satchit can be ascertained even in the Ghora est and the Mudha est of vrittis. This is the second form of contemplation. And the third form here is talked about as something which is where the Ananda aspect again is within quotes. Remember that always. So the Ananda aspect of Brahman is also contemplated upon. Simply for that, we have to add the understanding of the word now. Now the emotions are dancing. Now they are sitting down with the head in their hands, sad. Now they are all over the place. Now they are quiet. Now they are angry. You see, everything you observe, but you add the word now to reiterate the fact that the observation is happening in present time. And the present is actually free of time. Even though we call it present time, present is timeless. That's why it's called present, because it is a big present to understanding the truth of oneself. That is why it is called present. The other reason it's called present is because it reveals the presence of the observer as free of everything that is observed. Therefore, presence. Present. So the present is occupied by what? Your own presence. And your own presence is needed to observe these inert vrittis. Now this, now that. And when you say now, you are firmly in the present. You can be thinking of the past, but that is happening now. You can be worrying about the future, but that is happening now. Now sad, now happy means what? Now is timeless. Now is Ananda, Ananta. That which is timeless is Ananda. So the Ananda, Satchidananda here upholds sorrow, upholds all kinds of emotions of which one is not proud. So therefore the sadness is also upheld by Ananda. Here all three are understood and observed. When you say now, now, you can never be sad. If I ask you the question, are you sad now? What will you say? Are you sad now? You know, by the time you think so much, the now will have gone, okay? I'll have to ask the question again. Are you sad now? No. What about now? No. And if somebody was to say yes, I will say, that was then, this is now. So, this is what it is. The whole thing is now. And when you catch hold of the now, you are in Ananda. When the now slips into an identification with the then you have, as though, proverbially speaking, left the now behind, metaphorically speaking. Of course, you can never leave the now behind, but you have chosen to override the now and then catch hold of the emotions which are time bound. Sorrow ensues. So that is why both the Vedanta Shastra and the contemplations advised here are all bringing one back to the now. Back to the now. All there is now. And this now is free of time, is free of vrittis, is free of anything that is finite. This now is Ananda, this now is you. So these are the three kinds of meditation we saw. And then there is, let's read the next one, because he gives an important reason why the inferior, he classifies these meditations as inferior, just contemplating on the Sat, and mediocre, madhyama, middling. What is the middle one? The middle one is contemplating on Sat Chit. And then finally, Satchidananda, Utkrishta. Utkrishta means superior. So if something is inferior and you are calling it that, why focus on that? The answer is given in verse number 28. Mandasya vyavaharepi mishra brahmani chintanam उत्कृष्टं वक्तुमेवात्र विषयानन्द ईरितः. This is to help the manda adhikari, adhama adhikari, the person who is not very well qualified to take up Vedanta. Why? Why? Because of the presence of ghora and mudha vrittis, because of the lack of self-enquiry, because of the inability to manage these recalcitrant and very tough emotions. So, mandasya vyavahare, in the behavior of the person, of dull intellect, in this person, mishra brahmani chintanam, contemplating upon Brahman conditioned by space, time, object, etc., contemplating upon objects as Sat, is itself Utkrishtam. For that person, this is a very big, wonderful form, exalted form of meditation. That is why he is saying that this is not to leave anyone behind. No matter how ghora, how mudha the vrittis may be, we are going to include everybody and take everyone along with us, because out of his compassion, he doesn't want people to miss out on Vedanta, and everybody has to start somewhere depending upon their preparation. And doesn't matter if this person is barely prepared, unprepared, whatever you want to call it, they will get prepared. They will get prepared with the help of these practices. The mind will become more lighter, and one will be able to contemplate on the truth of oneself. One will be able to listen to the truth of oneself from the teacher and then contemplate on that also. So Utkrishtam, to show that this itself is exalted for the Manda, and to say this, that is why this chapter called the Joy of Objects has been written by me, has been proclaimed, iritaha, has been unfolded. You can see that he is wrapping up some of the discussions, that the very lengthy and profound discussions that we've had over the course of this last days, series of days. He's getting ready to slowly wrap up, and then so he says, this is why, to tell this only, that even for someone who is totally obsessed with objects, there is a way to bring them out of the objects and help them to get to the place of is, the source of the objects. Doesn't matter that they are not in a place of seeing that the source is none other than themselves, and that the happiness that they are attributing to the objects and projecting onto the objects will only lead to disappointment. It doesn't matter if they are not seeing that. Doesn't matter if they are addicted to objects. All they have to do is see that the objects have a certain truth. All objects share one thing and one thing alone. What is that? They all exist. This itself is a big step for somebody who is totally obsessed with objects. and has no interest in inquiring into the subject, which is the subject matter of Vedanta. And if you just scroll back to the first verse, the very first verse, he says, Athatra Vishayanandah Brahmanandamsha Rupa Bhak. Now in this chapter we will describe the joy which is derived from the contact with external objects. Why should we do that? Because Dvara Bhutaha Tadamshatvam Shrutir Jagau, because the Shruti says that Vishayananda is a doorway to Brahmananda. And so we cannot leave the Vishayas alone for two reasons. The objects cannot be left alone, or there be some kind of an artificial distinction between the subject and the object. Firstly, because it is not according to the teaching of Vedanta, which says the object and subject are but an expression of that undivided consciousness which is all Ananta, limitless, joyful, which is of the nature of Satchidananda. So then to maintain this distinction between subject and object is no longer tenable if one wants Advaita. So this is the first reason. The second reason is that to recognize from a place of compassion, not from a place of patronizing or condescension, that there may be many people, because of the setup of the universe, that one is always object focused. Even the most seasoned Vedantin had to start somewhere. Even that person was object focused. If you think of yourself 10 years ago, you will find that you are so different. And now, after Vedanta, you are now in a very different place. So, doesn't matter where the person is, even the most object-obsessed person can be brought to Vedanta with the help of those aforementioned objects, which become a doorway to understanding and enjoying the Ananda, the limitlessness, which is itself Brahman. How do the objects become a doorway? Because first you attract the person. Oh, we are going to talk about objects? Oh, great. Subject I'm not that interested in. Objects, yes, because I love objects, I love things, I love all these discrete things. What do they share in common? Well, they all exist. Yeah, that we know. Just think of that they have a common source. And that source is Bhagavan, that source is Ishvara. And it doesn't matter if they cannot see that source is I alone, that themselves alone. Still, seeing that they have a common source, that they are simply manifest effects of a cause that is not locally available, is enough. That itself is a doorway to this Vishayananda, and so we are going to, that is why we have focused on Vishayananda, to be able to make Vedanta available for each and everybody. So there goes this myth that Vedanta is for a select elite club of people and it does not speak to the people in the everyday. Yes, it does, says Swami Vidyaranya. More we will see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you.